Hello and welcome. I'm back again, and this is the place to be to find inspiration to revolutionize your career. My name is LICIA Dewing, and I'm a career strategist. And this is the Career Revolution series happening on LinkedIn Live and then streaming on podcast, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other fun places that you can find us. Today, I'm really excited to introduce my guest who connected with me because of this amazing platform, LinkedIn and LinkedIn Lives. And without any further ado, I'm going to bring her on board. But just to introduce Michelle J Raymond, who is the owner and entrepreneur and founder of The Good Trading Co. I'm sure many of you might have seen her on LinkedIn. And if you haven't, where have you been hiding? So without any further ado, Michelle, welcome.
Well, that is an introduction and a half, and I'm very glad to see I'm not the only one that always says I'm very excited, because how cool are these LinkedIn Lives where you get to meet people from all over the world and have these kind of conversations. So I'm excited to have it. Thank you for inviting me.
Such a super duper pleasure. I mean, the mere fact that you and I are here sitting talking, that in itself is a bit of a career revolution discussion, let alone the steps that built up and the journeys that you and I have both been on. But what I want to get into for everyone who's going to be tuning in and listening. And by all means, please ask any questions that you have of Michelle or I in the comments. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from, because it's morning here in Cape Town and it's early evening in Sydney and all of the lands and the places in between. I love that. I think that's the LinkedIn geek in me. I just like to know where in the world people are and what their time zone is. I could just spend time talking about that.
Exactly. Trying to coordinate them all is like a miracle in itself.
Exactly. I know, like that's a skill. I'm actually that's going to be the next thing that I say I've done really well over the last 10 years is coordinated international time zones.
Yeah.
But to everyone, yes, ask us questions and let us know where you're tuning in from. But Michelle, I'm going to zone in on your career revolution. Today is not going to be about the Good Trading Code just yet. I want to take you back to your career, the one that none of us really know about because it was the one that you were busy doing, head down in the trenches, working away without this international platform and exposure and opportunity that you've now jumped in, both feet, and are, as you say, swimming and talking and doing all the best. So where does it start? Tell us about the industry that you're in that you pivoted out completely into.
Actually, where it all started was one of my very first jobs when I was about 23-ish, which is around 23 years ago, coincidentally. And essentially what happened was I started a new job. I grew up in a town where there was basically one key employer, and that was a steel manufacturing company. So like many people in the area that I lived, we went off and worked at this steel company. And they took us on a parade to go and see everything that was, being manufactured. And I fell in love with the manufacturing process. I watched this big steel bar turn into a steel rod and all of the mechanics and machinery and processes. And that moment on became a career choice for me to work in manufacturing. Now, I love taking ideas and turning them into reality. Like that whole process is one of my favorite things to do. So fast forward 20 odd years and I moved into the beauty industry. So selling all the raw materials and ingredients that you can't pronounce on the back of like shampoo bottles and things like that for skincare and hair care, where I got to work with research and development teams to develop those products. So I'd be the salesperson. I'm
Mm.
a salesperson by trade for that entire time. Absolutely love it. I am the person that was born to sell. And so essentially, fast forward, the beauty industry was amazing. So I got to, like I say, sell raw materials and ingredients to some really well-known brands around Australia and beyond. And so, yeah, manufacturing for me is where it all started. And I'm still passionate about it. I think it's, such an amazing part of industries. It was never glamorous.
So I really love the way that you're able to pinpoint it back to one of those early career memories. And so much of the work that I do with my clients is around doing a bit of a retrospective, because you can't rush into the new until you really understand and know where you're at. And where you're at, of course, it's been informed from the past. So that, by definition, seeing that manufacturing process within the sort of steel manufacture, like that massive big machine, it's kind of like I got the sense of the small child being in a museum. It's like learning about the history of the world, learning this is how things are made. The wonder and awe of that totally gripped you. And because of that, you knew manufacturing's the word, that's the industry, I'm going to head there. So you were one of the lucky ones. I mean, many people in the world didn't get that opportunity. They were kind of told, go be this, go study that, go get a good qualification, go that. So I love that early recognition of that memory for you.
It was really interesting because, my mum, I'm sure, had those plans for me as well. And I went down my own path. I was hell bent on doing things my way and probably, have a small regret sitting on my shoulder that I didn't go and do those things, like get a piece of paper. But I would have been a high school
No.
PE teacher. Like I would have been teaching kids sport at school if I'd gone down that path. So it's really interesting when I stop and think that's what I wanted to be when I grew up, was a PE teacher. What I ended up in was manufacturing, and I love it. Like there was plenty more, as I said, glamorous jobs where I could have, literally gone and sold digital products or, all kinds of, cooler things that would have paid a lot more money. But I loved, literally, like you said, in awe and wonder, trying to figure out how people created these machines, these processes to bring out tangible goods. And especially when it was something that had never been done before, that was just such a sense of achievement to see the success of those products. And so even my last job, I ended up, being the general manager of a manufacturing company that was making cleaning chemicals. And I loved it. And I was, in dirty jeans, stomping through cold warehouses in the middle of winter with all kinds of people surrounding me. And it was the least glamorous job I've had and probably one I've loved, a lot more. So yeah, it's really interesting how it plays out.
It is interesting. So the most fulfilling type of work you found was you were given the freedom and the space, thankfully, by your parents to kind of follow that calling. That image of manufacturing, that turning, churning big machinery was the thing that kind of called to you, and you were allowed to go and do it. Thank goodness you didn't cave to the pressure of going to become a teacher and whatever, because you probably might have been a bit miserable, or you might have ended up kind of, who knows? Like,
Well, what's really funny about that is I think I've ended up a teacher now in my current business and my current role. Like I
yes.
really do love teaching, and training is probably one of the favorite parts of my business that I have now. So to some degree, that part has never left me. I've just got a different expression of it. And so it's really like, because I love empowering other people. I love bringing the best out of other people. And so that's ultimately where
How
that
you
part's coming through
navigate.
for me now.
Yes. So it's so interesting. That in itself is also what often creates friction within people's careers, because we gravitate towards teaching. I really enjoy teaching, but the system of how to teach, the existing education, nuts and bolts and bricks and mortar, isn't what people enjoy. So it really is to kind of investigate and probe and know oneself to the extent of, I actually enjoy inspiring hearts and minds and giving new information, but I don't enjoy pitching up in a school and whatever. I mean, thankfully, the world has shifted and changed, and so many industries are being disrupted by so many dynamics and pressures. But at the same time, the invitation will always be there for us to go, well, hold on, what is it about teaching that I really enjoy? Because we tend to sometimes go to something that doesn't look like what we think we enjoy. And then we end up navigating, sort of pivoting way away from that and going, no, it's not teaching that I enjoy, but it's an element of it. You come back to it. It's like you kind of come full circle.
Yeah, it was really interesting when I look at it and, when I moved into the chemical industry, because it was,
Mm,
in my mind, something that was safe. It wasn't
mm,
manufacturing in Australia. A lot of our jobs went overseas, not an uncommon
mm.
story for manufacturing in any company,
Yeah,
in any country, I don't think. And
yeah.
so I wanted to look for job security. So I thought, this company's really big. Cleaning chemicals, we're going to need them every single day, or they had all these other portfolios that I could have moved into, and it was job security for me. I thought, but it was a bigger
Mm,
pond. I was like, I'm going to jump into this big pond and I'm going to love it. And then I realized that this company, which had about 1,200 employees, that just meant that there were more steps to try and change anything, up the chain,
mm,
down the chain. And I got super frustrated. And I thought it was just that company. So I left that and I got poached to go to another company in a similar industry, almost same job, same customers. But this one had 15,000 employees globally. And so it was super huge. And so I thought, maybe if you go bigger, they're going to have all these great resources and I'm going to learn from all these amazing people. And all that happened was I was that square peg in a round hole going, get me out of here. I am so
mm.
constricted by things that I was going to go crazy. And so I left that. And then the jump was to become a general manager running a business. So I got to call the shots. And I think that's what I've discovered having my own business now, is
Mm,
that's what I really love, is
mm.
going, oh, this should be done better. Oh, let's just change it right now. So it's little things like that I didn't realize when I was in it. It's only now that I'm out of it
Out of
that I'm
it,
like,
that you
oh,
can, that's
yeah,
why it wasn't working. And
it, yeah, it wasn't the
that
company, it was me.
exactly. It never is. It's always us. It always is us. Well, all right, there is external and internal levels of friction. I mean, I use the word friction with the greatest honor and reverence, because friction is the thing that gets two pieces of wood to set a light right. So friction is a really positive force if we acknowledge it, if we learn the lessons from it, if we look into it, if we try and kind of run away from it and run away from the friction to a place that's going to be happy and vanilla and not not um, uh, burn us, then we're not going to really learn from it in a sense. But if we face it and say, well, hold on, what's happening? How am I feeling this? And that's the self-reflection. That's sometimes the thing that comes after. Sometimes it's the thing that comes during, I suppose. But in my I, I want to use the word wisdom, but I'm way too like, the wisdom wouldn't even be. It's like in my years of being able to hear from other people's wisdom, because I ain't the guru. Everyone else is the guru. I've just developed a framework to get people's guru-ness out of them as a career strategist. So in my opportunities of listening to everyone else's wisdom, thing that never really just kind of clicks is the very thing that we need to be looking at, rather than trying to go and find another click. So that's us. It's all of us. It's every man's sort of story and journey sometimes. I want
Yeah.
to go to the walking through the factory and loads of people, and it was kind of cold and grungy and dirty, but you were absolutely loving it. And because you were in the space that you could see what was going into these products, you were in control of the manufacturing process. There were so many interesting things that were obviously kind of bubbling under the surface and playing out for you there. Talk a little bit about that, because that, I love that image of anyone else look at you might have gone, get her out of there, get her a job, that she said you were thriving and loving it.
And I can tell you it was the most disgusting, kitchen or lunchroom or toilets that you could ever imagine. And they were one of the first things that I fixed when I got in there. But it was one of those businesses that had been bought a few years earlier by someone who was like 26 at the time. And he had done a significant amount of improvement to the manufacturing processes and all that kind of side of things. The business had grown, reached a point where he realized he needed someone to actually grow the commercial processes inside of that,
Mm,
and really, look for process improvement, which is what I've been trained in working in manufacturing my entire life,
mm,
is looking for ways to do things better. And so, my brain just went in there, and I loved it because not only could I spot what needed to be improved, I had the autonomy to then go and improve it. And that meant sometimes it was training for people, sometimes that was changing procedures, sometimes that was changing manufacturing processes, with a big eye on safety, for instance, and making sure that we kept people safe. And so, I just had this big long list, and I'm one of those people, if it was all fixed and neat and perfect, I would have hated it. I like to fix stuff. So, I've been really good at sales because sales is a combination of helping people and problem solving. And so the more I do both of those things, the more I sell. It's just a function of that. So fixing stuff and seeing that before and after is, where I thrive. And so I was loving it. And you think, well, Michelle, if you were loving this so much and the team was loving it and I was loving it, and we get to March 2020 and COVID hits. Now, this isn't one of those stories where I say I lost my job because, the impact of COVID. We were manufacturing hand sanitizer. And I don't know, about you locally, but hand sanitizer was like gold. It was the gold rush. It was crazy. So I had just secured a deal for $2 million worth. Now, to put that in perspective for this business, the business was turning over roughly $2 million of revenue. So it wasn't big. So 2 million was doubling that, to give you a kind of perspective.
Wow.
Until one night I was driving home from work and I get a phone call from my client who I'd only spoken to a couple of hours before. And she said, Michelle, what's going on with our order? And I said, as I told you before, it's coming on Monday and you'll get this and that. And and I could hear in her voice that something was going on, like she was really upset. And she said, why did this person call my boss and say we couldn't have our order unless we doubled the price? We're only getting a fraction and we have to pay cash up front. I said, what are you talking about? That person doesn't even work at this business. I have no idea what's going on here. Then my brain started to click. He'd reneged on the deal. He'd pushed me under the bus and blamed me. And had lied through his teeth because it was an opportunity to make more money by selling that same stock to someone else. And I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. It is the worst moment in my career that I've ever had because I understood the implications of not delivering that order and everybody's reputation.
On the phone. Yeah, that time.
Yeah. And I just burst into tears. There's no other way to describe that moment. And I cried for hours and didn't sleep and thought I'd destroyed my career. So you say like things happen. That was my moment. That was my, brute force. And it's probably something that needed to happen because there'd been some things leading up to that didn't sit right with me. And I could feel my values were getting more and more out of alignment. So, in practice, it was something that probably was coming, but this was just bang, it's happening today. And I literally quit on the spot at 6:30 at night and didn't go back ever again. I woke up the next day to pure silence. And, this for me, I'm fortunate I have a life that I can make that choice. Not everybody does. And I acknowledge that. But I'm fortunate. And I sat there the next day in pure silence. I'd gone from having 30 people reporting to me at me all day, every day, to being at home alone. And I was like, wow, it's really quiet. And then my partner, she said to me, Michelle, why don't you just work your butt off for us and make us some money instead of all these other people who just keep, taking advantage or ripping you off or different things that had happened. And I was like, okay, I'd never thought about owning my own business really. And I said, well, what would I do? She's like, I don't know, you can do anything. And, it's a blessing and a curse some days when you can do anything.
And you can do anything.
You can do anything. And so it's not like, I'm a baker, I'm just going to go and bake. It was just, I could sell whatever. And I had lots of opportunities come to me. And they pulled me in this direction, they pulled me in that direction and pulled me back here. And none of them felt right. I was like, I feel like I'm going back, 15 years. And then
I'm going to pause you.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, to finish that last sentence. I want to pause you before you start going any further into the story because it's getting so exciting and so completely juicy. And I want to just take you back to the moment that you resigned, or the moment that things had started to build, you said perhaps, you were starting to feel, oh, is this it? There was a pinging on your value system, and then suddenly, as you say, it came full force. That was it. So they kind of, you knew there was no other option. You knew it wasn't about going in, get an explanation. I'm not going to go into the office and try and figure this out, change it or anything. It was, I'm out of here. A bucket of cold water moment. Expression. So you knew that, and that overrid your feeling of possible fear. That overrid the, what if, who's going to phone? Where's the money going to come from? What can I do? You had a little bit of security. There was a bit of more living than month, or more money than month there for you. So as you said, you were fortunate that you could make that call and make that decision. But it really was what mattered most to you, holding true to your values, your integrity, honoring the connections that you'd made with those people. That meant more than you kind of going in and negotiating and fitting in and figuring it out. And I think that's the revolution, that for anyone who's listening, anyone here, there comes a time when the thing inside of you is more important than the things that are happening outside of you. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
agree?
Oh, absolutely. It was in all my experiences being, senior account managers in different roles. My name was what I took everywhere with me. My relationships are what I took everywhere. And anything that came and dented that, and all the work that I'd done, essentially the 20 years beforehand, to put that in jeopardy was a bigger risk to me than I had the confidence that I'd get a job elsewhere. My
Mm,
previous bosses would have all begged me to come back. I
mm,
always had open doors, to go back to anywhere that I'd work. So for me, that wasn't the concern. The concern was, how could I live with myself and knowing that that had happened, and
mm,
the impact that it had had on other people, and I literally thought I would never get a job in that industry ever again. As it turns out, I was blessed by that a particular manager at that company who rang me the next day, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Are you okay?" And I will be forever grateful for that person, who I've never met, never spoken to since. But he could have gone one of two ways, and he
mm,
showed me kindness and compassion and empathy.
mm,
And then we went on to how I could help him, and that to me is a sign of a good human. And
mm,
it really could have done a lot more damage than what had been done to me in that last 24
mm,
hours. He has every right to have, been going, what the hell's going on?
mm.
Um,
And
but
continued throwing you under the bus, or running
yeah,
with the narrative that somebody chose to set.
the more I learned, the worse it got, so that initial shock,
Mm,
12 hours later when I had that conversation, got worse. And so my decision became even firmer, because I was
mm,
like, I cannot be associated with that on any level. And, you
mm,
wonder why my company's called Good Trading Co. The focus is on the
mm.
good, doing good business with good people. Now you know where that comes from, because I made a
Yeah.
decision, even though I didn't know what my business was going to do. And that's, another fun story. But I didn't know. All I knew was I didn't want to work with what I would determine bad people,
Yeah.
and
Mm,
that's my definition of them. But I want to be surrounded by people who have integrity, who are out purpose driven, out to do good things in the world.
mm.
I don't want to be surrounded by that kind of stuff. Life's too short.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Whoop, whoop. All the career revolutions. They're going. you know, Michelle, so many thoughts running through my mind as I listen to you talk, because without taking away the beauty of your unique story, it's what I've heard in other form. It's different for everyone, obviously, and it looks different to everyone. But that real revolution of, I ain't going to do this. Can't, that, forget it. This is it. And as you talk about the call from the manager the next day, who approached you from a great, I see you, are you okay? But what played out just really entrenched the decision. I was like, I'm definitely never going to go back into that place. That
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
understanding and that revolution, everything, it's just, it looks different for everyone, but that's what happens. We suddenly get to a point where there is no going back. And it might be there is no going back to crazy work hours, or it might be there is no going back to having to do the very thing that we hate doing. That doesn't ping against our value system. Yours was an integrity point, but maybe it's just, I don't want to pick up the call and have to phone another person and try and get them to buy something. I'm not going to do that anymore. We look ahead in the industry, we look ahead at that corporate ladder and go, nothing there excites me. I want to run as fast as I possibly can. And that feeling of making that sudden decision. Sometimes it's a slow burn, sometimes it's a sudden explosion, sometimes it's a bang. But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for being here and telling that story. I didn't know that that was the part before the good trading company. And I'd love
Yeah.
you to tell us now about what happened in the silence. You had a supportive partner. As you said, you
Yep.
were fortunate in that you didn't need to get work, but you knew that you could get work.
Mm.
But why didn't you go back to some of those companies that would have hired you back? Why did it go into a real pivot? Was it such a shift for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, it was really interesting. So, as part of my, account management role, working at, the original company selling the
Yes.
chemicals and ingredients for the beauty space, I actually had started using LinkedIn back then. So that's around 8 years ago, as part of
Mm,
that role, to try and connect with my customers that weren't necessarily geographically near me. And then I discovered that I love content. I got really amazing at building a community. So I have one of the most amazing niche communities built around beauty industry. Unfortunately, it kind of got parked to a degree, but it's still there. But essentially, the big bang goes off. I wake up the next day, it's silent. I go, okay, fine, I'm going to set up my own business. Now, fast forward, I'm a complete extrovert that's a salesperson by nature, that's been on the road or been surrounded by people forever. And all of a
mm,
sudden it's lockdown, it's winter here in Australia, and I'm home by myself for months trying
mm,
to come up with this idea of what this business would be and going, no, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right.
mm.
And then eventually I did nothing, right?
So
I
you, so
went
you
to pause. Sorry, you can go. I just went to silence, right?
Silence. So you knew, sorry to kind of jump in there, but so you knew you wanted to go into business for yourself. Your partner had said, enough with this making the money for other people, make it for us. So you had that support. You knew you wanted to do
Yeah.
something for yourself. So you were looking, what is it going to be? What is it I want to do? What can I, you were kind of looking at what was gonna pop out of the silence, what was gonna shout at you out of the silence.
Yeah, I thought this magical idea would just pop. And she was like way more confident than I was. I was a bit like, what do you mean do my own business? And she's like, no, you're so smart. Just go do it. Like you can do anything. You've just been running someone else's business with your eyes closed. Like just do
Do
it. And
it
I
for
was like, okay.
yourself.
So,
Mm,
3 months go by. I'm home by myself going, come up with an idea, come up with an idea, come up with an idea. And she'd come home from work and she'd say, what did you do today? And I'd say, nothing. I played on my phone. Did you do the washing, go the groceries? No, I did nothing. I bounced off the bottom because I think
mm,
the energy from quitting and everything that had just happened eventually caught up with me. And I realized what had happened and I wasn't just moving. And so eventually I almost spontaneously combusted and went, I've got to come up with an idea. I've got to come up with an idea. I can't just lay at home doing nothing by myself all day. And then I was like, that's it. I'm going to get a job. And my partner's like, okay, Michelle, if that's what will make you happy, like go get a job, off you go. And ironically, I'd been headhunted again, by someone else who'd been chasing me for months. And so I reached out and I was like, is that job still there? And he said, yep. So I met with him and he says, it's all great. Interview's great. I'll send you a contract in a couple of days. And he ghosted me, never to be seen again. And I was like, okay, that was weird. You've been chasing me for, probably 12 months. It wasn't like a
mm,
quick thing. So then but it was like a pressure valve got released. It was like, oh, I can breathe again. And then, so what I did is my industry that I'd come from had started to use LinkedIn because we're in lockdown here. And so they
mm,
started to do what I'd been doing for 6 years. And
mm.
thankfully, I reached out to one of them and I said, do you know if you do this, this, and this on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach far more people and it'll make a huge difference. And she said to me, oh my God, Michelle, how do you know all of this stuff? I wish I could learn from you. Ta-da! There's my light bulb,
Ding,
literally
ding,
the
and
light
that
bulb.
was it. That's where it went off. You said something really amazing about your energy after the resign. You just dipped and like you kind of you plateaued and you couldn't do the things that you couldn't do the things you knew you needed to do despite having a supportive partner, despite having somebody who was sort of saying, figure it out, but please do this, please do that, the chores in the house.
Yeah.
You weren't able to get to those. And that's like, I'm so sorry that you had that experience, but I'm also a little bit grateful because you wouldn't have been here now. That was another rung in really making sure that you weren't going to go back to finding something that you think looked like work, finding something that gave you a ladder to climb, the corporate ladder, finding the sort of the thing that we needed to do, get busy and go out and do it. It wasn't there. So it kind of forced you back. And then the guy that goes to, thank you, Mr. Guy, wherever you
Yeah.
might be, for having ghosted Michelle. God bless you for doing that, quite literally, because you wouldn't be here doing what you're doing, changing the lives that you're changing, and really impacting with integrity and living true to your values. So isn't it amazing how the universe sometimes knows and
Look,
holds back when we think it's worse? And you could have had a whole lot of anger towards that guy. You could have gone and, found him and say, hey, you've made a commitment. I need the contract. There's so many things that might have actually played out and you just hung with it to wait to see what was going to play out, and bang, there you go.
yeah, and it was really funny because part of what he wanted me to come into that business was, and so there was this kind of traditional sales role, which was similar to what I've been doing, because I just want to hire you for your positivity. I want you to come in and I want you to be Little Miss Sunshine in my business and bring that uplift into my business, and all this other stuff. And I was like, what do you mean you're going to pay me to be happy and be me? Like, it was just crazy. And I look back now, and I probably haven't thought about it for a couple of years, but when I look back
Yes.
now, I'm so thankful that he ghosted me.
Mm,
And I'm so thankful for the person who happened to answer, when I reached out and
mm,
asked that question.
mm,
And so that's where my business began. And now I get to do all the things that I was frustrated by in other businesses that stopped me from doing things. I get to
mm,
create the things in my way based on my experiences, which are really wide and varied in different types of businesses. I get to cherry pick all the best bits. And then that's what Good Trading Co. is. And while setting up my own business has been the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life, I
mm,
underestimated exactly how hard that whole process would be to create something from scratch. It's been completely humbling. And I spent my first year trying to be the LinkedIn expert. And that was like a hollow victory by the time I got to the end of the year. It was, sure, I got to write a book, and that was pretty amazing. But it didn't feel right still. And so it's only been this year where I was like, I am a LinkedIn trainer. I am an expert in my field. And company pages is my thing. But I'm also Michelle, who has a huge heart, cares about other people, is really community minded, purpose driven, and wants to do good. And so that's
mm,
what this year's been for me. And, it's been amazing. I feel, just happy as. And I get to make other people happy and help them rise up, and reach back and say, I'm just 2 years ahead of you. So if you're comparing your story and you look at me and you see me online and you think, wow,
mm.
that's amazing. I love the opportunity to talk with you today to go, you know what? That's not who this person was 2.5 years ago. This
Yeah.
person was sitting in a spare bedroom, laying on a bed, not trying to come up with an idea for a business, about to spontaneously combust. And so I just want to share with people what you see now is just someone that's been through the journey that maybe you're starting yourself.
After the revolution, there's always an evolution. That's the play on the words. There's always this sudden filling out the space, growing into this awareness, and realizing this is really the thing that I love to do. This is my work for purpose. And your self-actualization along the process has been so liberating, clearly for you, for us to hear it and witness, and so on point, so completely on point that it truly, I mean, I think the words calling and purpose can sometimes confuse us and feel so far off and out of reach that we tend to kind of smirk at them or sort of scoff at them. But what you really did was you found your calling. And did it look like the LinkedIn expert? No, because that left you feeling a little bit wanting for it. What you found within LinkedIn was a super great tool. What you found were really great engines and vehicles to drive that calling that you now bring to the world, the Good Trading Co., and showing up as Michelle. And as you say, being the sunlight, or giving finding the hope, the light, wherever it might be, but spreading. You said looking for ways to improve and looking for ways to make things better. That was a theme back in the day when the manufacturing kind of tog gripped you. I was going to use a manufacturing expression and then sort of lost it. I won't go down that road. That's it. Looking for ways to make things better. That's really what you're doing. You show up every day looking for ways to make things better in the form of business owners, through company pages, through the Good Trading Company. That you're doing the thing that's your calling. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's all those things. It's teaching people, it's helping other people grow, it's helping businesses reach their potential. It's allowing me to be the leader that I resisted for so long, because now it's, again, it's that integrity piece that you've mentioned a couple of times. It's really important to me. And now I can do it hand on heart and know that where I'm taking you, I wholeheartedly believe in. I'm doing it because I believe that if I help other businesses grow, we create more meaningful employment. That means more people have opportunities and choices. And that means we live in a better world. And that's what it is for me. So people see it as company pages, and that's very uninspiring, even for me, who lives and breathes them every day. But when I connect that to, I live in a better world because there's more choices for people, then it's a no-brainer. And that's why it's so much fun for me, because I'm really connected to those two things. Whereas last year when I was, kind of starting out, I would have been I know I have so much knowledge about company pages, and I would never dared have shared with anyone why I love to do this stuff. And so now I get to do both of those things. I still get to be the expert. I didn't lose any of that shine. I just get to be the expert for the right kinds of people. That now I've got this amazing community. I've met people like yourself from all over the world. I've worked with clients in about 15 different countries now, and that just, that's mind blowing, but that's the opportunity. And I think I'm just growing. I've just started. And so I'm excited to think what happens in 2 more years' time. Like, I never in a million years thought I would be sitting here doing things like this with people all around the world, sharing my story to inspire maybe someone else out there that's in a situation that doesn't feel right, that is messing with their, that inner gut feeling that, it's not right. And, maybe you don't have that opportunity right now to make the leap like I did. But if I can encourage people out there to, put things in process to get out of there, you'll never regret that.
And, oh, yay, whoop, 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 all along the way while you're saying that. Where's that button where I can go, round of applause? Michelle, you're sharpening the tool in the form of a company page on this massive platform that is LinkedIn, that provides so much opportunity to so many people. Never in the history of anything has there been a moment like there is today to figure out what you want to do, create a LinkedIn profile, create a company page, and go out and engage with your ideal clients, with your audience, inspire the hearts and minds, and share what it is that you want to do in this great global platform. So yeah, when you say company pages, I love the way you speak so honestly about it. And you go, not that great, not that sexy, but and it's the platform and the station that really gets people who may also be sitting at home, let's face it, right now, thinking, what is it going to be? What is it going to be? Where am I leaning into the silence, looking for something to pop out? And then, a click and a connection and a like. And I mean, don't underestimate the difference that one conversation, one comment from one person and across a network can completely explode within people's small businesses and small startups or massive businesses that need to completely change and pivot. The work that you do is phenomenal. I'm so glad that we were able to get this conversation recorded. I would like to ask and say maybe this would be the start of a few. Maybe it's not the beginning, it's not the end. Maybe we're somewhere here too, because I definitely want to watch and see where your journey goes 2.5 years in. And if this is where it really starts to come together, how good can it get?
Look, that's a question I always particularly ask myself. How good can it get? And I think the only thing that puts a limit on that is me. And, when I fall out of sync with that, I'm lucky that one of the amazing things about LinkedIn is building a community around you of supporters.
Mm,
Sometimes they're my butt kickers. Sometimes they give me a cheer. Sometimes it can be anywhere in between, someone to bounce ideas off. But now I'm surrounded by people. I never have to feel like that lonely person that was sitting in a bedroom
mm,
2.5 years ago trying to come up with an idea. I've
mm,
met some of the most amazing experts around the world, and that is genuinely the power of LinkedIn. It's not the features and
mm.
functions, it's not the company page, it's not the profile. It's, as you said, having those conversations that
Yeah,
kind of lead to collaborations and then build communities. Like that's
yeah,
what LinkedIn is.
yeah.
And I'm super excited that that's what I get to do every day. It's a big playground for me. So if I can ever,
Mm.
help anyone, I'm very happy to come back and have another chat if you want. I'm always open to it.
Absolutely. I'm saying yes to that. LinkedIn is a massively powerful tool, and sometimes it's a bit scary when you're holding it and you don't know what to do with it, and you see someone else and you're like, whatever. But everybody listening and everybody tuning in, wherever you might be hearing this, whether you're watching it live or whether you're actually listening to it, we're going to drop the links to Michelle's Good Trading Code, to her company page and to her profile, and do yourself a favor and follow her, because as I said at the beginning, if you don't know if you don't know Michelle J Raymond and you've been on LinkedIn, where have you been? Because you've not been in the right places. And I mean my company page, just when I came across your feed and started to follow and tuned into your clubhouse rooms and started to really pay attention, things exploded on my company page. So, testament here for that. But,
Awesome.
Michelle, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing the thoughts, the vulnerabilities, and the journeys along the way. I know that somebody somewhere is listening to this and they're going, I don't have to stick with this anymore. Theirs might not have come in the way that yours did, but it always plays out in the same way. There's going to be a revolution, and they're hearing yours, and they're going to just jump when the space creates. They're just going to fall into that silence. And I wish them all the best. And thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for your time. Anything else that we can do to support you or follow you from here, other than staying close on LinkedIn?
Look, stay close on LinkedIn. We've got some exciting projects. The LinkedIn branding book launches on November 18 this year. So I'm writing that with Michelle Griffin. And that's another project that is my ability to reach back and help people that are looking to make that leap like I did 2.5 years ago. It's part blueprint and part story. So we literally share what our lessons were, what we wish we'd known, and give people all the answers so that they can, speed up the process and not maybe make as many mistakes as I have. It's all part of the fun, but it's a project that it has come from the power of a comment 2 years ago where we commented on a post and then became friends, and now we're writing a book together. So the opportunities are there for people that are willing to be authentic, vulnerable, and really just go in with an open mindset and look for those opportunities that you want, not that, makes an algorithm happy, but what makes your heart
Mm.
happy and what your goals are. And so if I can help anyone with that, please do reach out. I love a good chat, as you can tell.
Fantastic. Is that the time? Really? You mean we've been talking for that long and we have to go?
Sorry. Sorry,
Thank you
not
so much.
sorry.
Not no, sorry, not sorry. And love, love, love everything you said. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. And we're gonna say goodbye. We'll see everybody in the comments, and be sure to tag Michelle and ask her for as much ask her for as much advice as that you can, and follow her on the company page. Thank you, Michelle. I'm gonna close off now. Bye bye.
Bye.